Have you ever wondered to yourself, how good am I actually at Roblox Obbies? You may have beaten an insane or a tier 14, but what does that actually mean? Today, I'll show you how you actually compare to the other Roblox Obbyists, and the results may actually surprise you, so stick to the end. Make sure to like, sub, and comment if you disagree with me on anything. So this uses both the Eternal Towers of Hell and tiered obby difficulty systems. If you don't have completions in either of these, you can't really rank yourself. Like if you just speedrun Tower of Hell, how am I supposed to measure this? Your skill level is what I'm going to call it. It equals your hardest completed obby. So if your hardest is Tower of Double Trouble, then your skill level is bottom insane. The time it took you to beat the obbies is also counted for, except in the first round. If your time taken is above or below what is mentioned, which is typically going to be the average, you may belong to the category above or below the one you're currently looking at. But keep in mind, this isn't always the case. This was largely based off of the number of completions in EToH towers, as this list would be basically impossible to make without those numbers. A lot of these completions, however, I am aware are cheated, use skips, or are done on alt accounts. So I will void out about 20% of them on average, depending on the tower. So the top 1 million. This is pretty hard to measure using EToH or tiered obby standards. But since there are around 55 million victors of Tower of Hell, of which 1 million can likely beat it consistently, if you can at least beat Tower of Heck in EToH, which is equivalent to about a bottom tier 4 or a low hard, you are at least within the top 1 million players approximately. A well-known player that would be in this category, for example, would be Greekcraft. So we have the top 100,000. I'm making a big jump here as most people watching this probably already belong to the top 25,000 anyway. But if you're in between the skill levels of bottom difficult to peak remorseless or bottom tier 5 to peak tier 10, you would belong to this category. Some obbies in this category would include Tower of Keyboard Yeeting or Beans in the lower end, or Tower of True Skill or Mintastic in the higher end. And a well-known player who would be in this category would be Bundun. So the top 25,000. This category is where Obbiest would be considered elite compared to the average Roblox player Jake Gamer 2323, but in the obby community they would be very far from the true elite Obbiest. To be in this category, you would have to be between the skill levels of bottom insane to peak insane, or bottom tier 11 to high tier 12. Some obbies in this category would include Tower Thinning Layers or Frigid, and a well-known player that would belong to this category would be MathFactor 360. So the top 10,000. The skill of these obbyists is already starting to rapidly ramp up, as we're getting into the 4-digit players. To be considered for this category, your skill level would have to be between bottom extreme to peak extreme, or peak tier 12 to around peak tier 13. Some obbies in this category that would be here would include Tower of Hopeless Hell or Firework, and a well-known player that would likely be in this category is Pinkleaf. So of the top 10,000, we're now getting into our terrifying players and advanced tier to Obbiest. To be considered here, your skill level would have to be bottom terrifying to peak terrifying, or bottom tier 14 to mid tier 15. Some obbies in this category can include Tower of Alien Radiance or Scarlet Paracosm, and a player that would be in this category could include Experts. So our top 2,500. Rounding off the 4-digit players, we start to introduce the notorious Kata players and tier 16 players. To be considered here, your skill level would have to be between bottom catastrophic to high catastrophic, or high tier 15 to low tier 16. Some obbies that could be included here are Tower of Generation Failure or Comatose. An example of a player here would actually be me. If you're curious, I beat Tower of Raging Tempest and Comatose. So with the top 1,000, we're now getting into what most considered to be elite obbyists, and I agree, once you reach the 3-digit threshold, you can probably call yourself an elite obbyist, but not a top obbyist quite yet. Also, take everything from this point on with a grain of salt, as a big majority of the EToH completions that would be included in this category, mostly horrifics, are cheated. Like, basically all of these COIV completions are fake, and at least half of these TOVH completions are unlegit as well. But with that said, to be considered for this category, you would have to be between high peak catastrophic to bottom low horrific, or mid tier 16 to bottom tier 17 skill. Some obbies in this category can include Tower of Cruel Punishment or Frostbite, and a player that would be in this category would be anyone who's 100%ed Eternal Towers of Hell, such as PCZM. So with our top 250 players, if you didn't think the last group was elite, this one certainly is. These players are the ones who can and have beat the top 50 hardest obbies. To be considered here, you would have to be between low horrific to low mid horrific skill, or bottom low tier 17 to low mid tier 17. Some obbies in this category can include Tower of Watermelon or Tower of the Roof's Peak, and a player that would belong here would be Crimzenith. So with the top 100, most people can't even fathom just how good these people are at obbies. These players are capable of beating top 20 obbies. To be considered here, you would have to be between low mid horrific to high horrific in skill, or low mid tier 17 to high tier 17. Some obbies that would be in this category are Tower of Eternal Void or Tower of Gunga Ginga. An example of a player that would likely belong here is Chubby Bubbers. So now we have our top obbyists. These are obviously the best of the best. Practically all of these players have played for years and years to become this good. These are the players that are capable of beating top 10s. To be considered here, you would have to be between high peak horrific to low mid unreal, or high tier 17 to bottom tier 18 skill. Some obbies that would be in this category are Tower of Spiraling Fates or Stairway to Heaven. And an example of a player that would belong here would be Skitsuna. And that's the end of the video. There's not much else to really explain. So make sure to like, sub, and comment down below what I should make a video on next. Comment if you think I did anything wrong. Peace out, buh.